Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all okay. I'll give everyone a minute just to get into the meeting. Or we'll get cracking. So good morning, everyone. I hope you're all okay. Staying warm wherever you are. I don't know about you, but it's we're hurtling towards Christmas break at the speed of light at the moment. So I hope you're all getting organised and looking forward to Christmas. So before I start today's webinar, I would like to encourage you all just to use the chat function, introduce yourselves, where you're from, why you've joined us today. And as we do move through the speakers, feel free to pop thoughts or ideas in the chat box. If you have any questions for our speakers, we also have a Q&A section. So do put them in there and we'll do our best to cover them at the end of the session. We'll also be recording the session, so don't worry if you have to dip out. We'll be sending it out to everybody afterwards, so no problem. Next slide, please, Sam. So we've got some great speakers lined up today. There'll be plenty of takeaways for your people, and hopefully you'll have some information to go back and share with colleagues and potentially put into practice within your organisations. So first off, you'll have me. I'm the growth manager here at Jump, and I'll be giving you a short introduction to Jump, sharing some interesting figures from Deloitte's newest CXO sustainability report, and some general facts and figures specifically on employee engagement in sustainability and why it's important for your organisations to harness their people power. I'll also leave my details in the chat box. If you'd like to book a deeper dive intro with me and discuss costings, etc., I'd love to speak to you. Next, we'll have Sam. He's our growth marketing manager, delving into our brand new Sustainability Engagement Trends Report 2024. And then finally, another jumper, Josh Cleall, our CEO, who'll be discussing some of the outcomes from COP24. I'll be finishing up with a showcase of a few of our current client programs, so you can see what it looks like and understand it a bit better. And we'll all aim in for around 10 to 15 minutes each for our sections, and we'll come back at the end for some questions and answers. So let's get going. Next slide, please. For those that maybe don't know Jump, just a quick intro. Jump is a technology engagement business that we help organisations to create and embed a culture of sustainability by bringing your people on your journey with you. And our mission is quite simple. It's to empower and motivate people to take action for a sustainable future. And our belief is that no matter how ambitious your net zero or sustainability targets are, you can reach them a lot quicker if you bring your people on board with you. So that's exactly what we're doing in more than 60 organisations. Next slide, please, Sam. It includes businesses, councils, universities and NHS trusts, and we work with them through a combination of technology, communications, gamifications and rewards. We've been around since 2011 and work across all sectors, as I mentioned, including NHS trusts, universities, councils and large global corporates. I think we've got a good mix of people on the call today as well, which is great. And I know a lot of you have spoken to us before, but if you haven't, please do let me know. I'd love to hear from you. So back in September, we attended Sustainability Live at the BDC in London. We had a stand there for a couple of days and we met lots of really passionate people. But it was a great event in general. The speakers and the content they brought were excellent. And one of the standout talks was from Sumitra Naik-Jones, which is the Chief Sustainability Officer for North and South Europe at Deloitte. And I wanted to share some of the insights because I walked away feeling quite positive. And as we all know, that isn't always the case when we talk about climate change. So I'm going to go through the latest CXO sustainability report, the key insights from it. So if you could move slides, please, Sam. But before that, I'm actually going to start with a poll. And I'm going to ask the two questions that she asked us when we were there. So first of all, how many of you believe that corporates have increased their climate action and investments over the last year? And there should be a poll coming up now. Sam, do you share the poll results?
Yeah, I've shared that with everyone. We've got 10 responses so far. 100% say yes.
Fab. And then another question, how many of you think the opposite, that actually there's been a deferring or decreasing of investments last year?
Just posting that one now. Okay. Should be available in the chat now for anyone who wants to answer that. Unsurprisingly, 100% say no.
Okay, so a mixed bag. Actually, we should be optimistic because the findings from the report are quite optimistic. And the report surveys over 2,100 executives across 27 countries and in many different sectors. And it asks them about their views and strategies related to sustainability and climate change. And the results are actually that there is no retreat from sustainability action by businesses, and instead a notable increase in investment in sustainability efforts, and signs that climate action is driving value creation and moving to the heart of many companies' strategies, which is fab. And if we just look at some of the figures here in a bit more detail. So climate change is a top 3 priority for organisations. Leaders are placing their sustainability efforts in their top 3 priorities alongside innovation and economic outlook and above political uncertainty, the competition for talent and supply chain worries. So they are making it a priority. And this is backed up by the next figure that 85% have increased their investments in sustainability, which is a 10% increase on last year, showing the momentum is there, which is great. 70% are saying they expect climate change to significantly impact strategies and operations over the next 3 years. And importantly, 92% believe that they can actually grow their business whilst reducing their greenhouse gas emissions, a very big shift in belief there. 45% are transforming their business model and strategy to address climate change. And what they're also hearing is no longer that trade-off conversations happening, that CXOs are really seeing this, that climate action isn't just having environmental beliefs, but tangible business benefits too. Moving not just from compliance or brand benefits, but measurable improvement in customer loyalty, supply chain efficiencies, and improved operating margins. 50% are investing right now in technology support to support their sustainability and climate action, as well as 42% in the next 2 years, hopefully. That investment they're making is no longer just for compliance reasons, but using technology to develop and drive new sustainable solutions and using that to change their business models. In summary, sustainable action is growing with increased investment, and executives are realising the profound business opportunity in the transition to low emissions future. It's not all rosy, of course. Around 27% of businesses have made no tangible movement to action, but Deloitte are positive they'll begin to move to take more sustainable action, with the risk that if they don't, they'll have a competitive disadvantage. 56% of the moderate middle companies are making moves and taking action to embed it into their business strategies, which is great. And with this in mind, it moves me on to that employee engagement in sustainability piece, and the notion that whichever point of your sustainability journey you're in, whether you're in that 27% or making inroads already, it's so important to get your people on board to push you forward. That is the gap we're trying to bridge here at Jump, and understand what you're doing as a business and translating that in a way that people can understand, get involved, and importantly, deliver real impact and results for your business and the planet. Next slide, please, Sam. And it's been more than 12 months now since the Climate Change Committee announced that behaviour change and engagement from people across the UK would be vital in ensuring we meet our net zero targets. But as a 2023 Deloitte Future Work Trends report found, the biggest barrier for organisations making progress on their sustainability goals is their existing culture. But as we know, changing an organisation's culture is challenging because it can be deeply rooted in the people and has been developed over many years. Our aim is to support organisations shape their culture of sustainability and their sustainability brand by integrating sustainability priorities into all aspects of their operations. And this approach encourages positive behaviour changes and leads to meaningful, impactful outcomes. By embedding sustainability in their core practices, organisations can make real progress towards their goals. But as mentioned, it's not easy. It requires a collective effort and a variety of tools and techniques to communicate a clear message that inspires people to join a movement and take action. So that's all from me from an intro, but we'll move on to our first speaker, Sam, who's our growth marketing manager. He's going to share our new sustainability engagement trends 24.
Hey everyone, as Laura says, I'm just going to talk us through the white paper that we've produced recently, and this is based on some research that we've done, but also research from across the industry. And really the idea behind it was to identify the awareness action gap. So this is the need to bridge the gap between employee awareness of their organization's sustainability strategy and vision, and bring about action from that awareness, and encourage and motivate that action towards the organization's sustainability goals. And we see three pillars here: education, engagement, and a culture shift that can help to bridge that gap between the two. And the reason we wanted to do that is we want to help advise the industry on best practice when it comes to sustainability engagement. We see ourselves as experts on this topic, having worked in it for over 10 years now. But also we want to help many of you as sustainability managers to communicate to your senior leadership teams if you have that difficulty, the value and the importance of sustainability engagement. Sometimes it can be difficult for the leadership to buy into that idea. So the way we've done this is we've compiled research from the last year on sustainability engagement from across multiple sources, but we've also conducted our own survey of over 1,500 workers in the UK. These workers are usually from larger organizations, so we skewed the poll towards organizations that have 1,000 or more workers. And we skewed the audience in particular towards middle management or more junior roles, because these are primarily the target of sustainability engagement communications and programs. These are the people that need to be getting involved with your sustainability initiatives that may not necessarily have a role or understand their role in sustainability initiatives already. So moving on to the first thing that I mentioned is the value of sustainability engagement. We've really identified 5 key reasons to for sustainability engagement, and the first being, of course, legislation. Now, this is a very changing landscape. It can change with an election, it can change with different world events, but the key thing that we want to bring light to, of course, is the EU Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, as well as the sustainability disclosure requirements, which really are meaning that organizations need to be more transparent and show their carbon emissions publicly so that the whole world can see it, basically. This means that there's going to be a spotlight on sustainability, and that's going to be really key for consumers, but also stakeholders. So that brings me on to the second point, is the stakeholder demand. So not only do we have the demand from the public sector, so we've obviously got the NHS with their net zero targets, meaning that their suppliers will need to be more sustainable so that they can therefore be more sustainable. But we also are seeing that demand in the private sector too, where larger organizations, they will be having to share, they will have to be compliant with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. They will need to be sustainable themselves, and it means that their suppliers also need to be sustainable. So it's not just being driven by the public sector, it's also being driven by the private sector. Private organizations are demanding more accountability and transparency from their suppliers and other stakeholders as well. And then that also brings us on to the competition in the market. We have seen from a PwC study done this year that 46% of consumers say they are buying more sustainable products to reduce their impact on the environment. So that means that with the CSRD bringing sustainability to the fore and making it a lot more visible, consumers will be doing their research, and this is nearly half of consumers that are making those choices and becoming more aware of the sustainability of the organizations that they buy from. So it is going to be key. Going forward, that number of 46% is only going to increase as climate change becomes more visible in the world. People are going to be making more sustainable choices when it comes to their consumer habits. But not just sustainability, but sustainability engagement is going to be important. So a future market insights study from, again, this year showed that employee engagement has been a key driver of organizational performance. Employees that are more engaged and more interested in their company's mission are more productive and are contributing more to that business. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but there's a very clear one that I think is probably very obvious to all of us. The benefit of sustainability is the reduced costs. So, of course, whenever you engage in more sustainable behavior, you're reducing your energy and your waste costs. But also something that we've seen as well is an improved well-being of employees that work at sustainable organizations. So bringing that back to employee engagement, if they are more engaged in their work and they feel like they are contributing to a good mission, they're going to be feeling better overall about their place, and it brings down those recruitment costs because they're less likely to leave. And I'll talk about the insights that prove that in a second. But if you do want to see the savings that you can make from something like a jump program, I'm just going to post in the chat now the savings model that we've created in collaboration with Northumbria University. Yeah, Northumbria University. That we worked with their research team to develop this savings model to see the actual cost savings that can be made from using a jump program. And also, whenever we create a proposal for a prospective client, we do include the ROI on there as well, because we know that there's a tangible cost saving element to sustainable actions. And so, yeah, coming back to the well-being angle and the recruitment costs, I'm just going to talk a bit about that now, because this is something that we studied in our own survey. We asked employees whether they agree that it is important for them to work for an organization that prioritizes sustainability. 82% of respondents agreed with that statement. So 82% of respondents agreed that their employer should prioritize sustainability. And that is not just, I think this is seen very strongly in Gen Z and millennials, but our survey was actually across all age ranges. So that's 82% across the board. So wherever you're trying to recruit top talent from, you can cast a wider net and recruit from a wider pool if you are being more sustainable, because the 82% of workers are taking that into account. But not only when it comes to recruitment, but also retention of top talent. 83% of people agreed of millennials, agreed that they would be more loyal to a sustainable organization, which means that they're more likely to stay with the organization that is being sustainable. But I'm just going to dive into the wording of that question. Particularly, this was from a study done by Cone Communications, and they asked, would you be more loyal to a company that helps you to contribute to social and environmental issues? So not only is it important for them to work for a sustainable organization, but it's important for them to be contributing themselves to those social and environmental issues within the workplace. So that's where the sustainable engagement comes in. They want to be contributing themselves. They want to be a part of that mission too. And then coming back to Deloitte, it's a different survey to the one that Laura shared earlier. This is their Gen Z and Millennial survey, also from this year. 55% of Gen Z and Millennials said that they research a brand's environmental policies before accepting a job from them. And 23% of Gen Z and millennials said that they plan to change jobs due to sustainable concerns in the future. So not only are they going to be more loyal, but they're less likely to leave. And this is all evidence that is going towards the fact that if you're a sustainable company, if you're involving your employees and your workforce in the sustainability initiatives as much as possible, they're likely to be more loyal, and you're able to recruit top talent from a wider pool of people. But how many of the how many employees are aware of their organization's sustainability strategy and vision? Well, you can see straight away, green being the strongly agree bar, red being the somewhat agree bar, that there are a large number of people, around about 75% across the board, that at least to any extent agree with that statement. So they are to some extent aware of their organization's sustainability strategy and vision. Now, this number decreases as the organizations increase in size. And that, I think, is part and parcel of larger organizations being more complex, having more departments that may not feel that they can contribute to sustainability initiatives. And I think that's particularly why the strongly agree percentile decreases quite rapidly, whereas the somewhat agree sort of hovers around that 50% mark. But also larger organizations, it's harder. I'm sure everyone watching today knows that it's going to be harder to communicate that vision to such a large number of people, and harder to get them to care, especially if they feel that like they're far removed from the sustainability initiatives. But like I say, we do see that there is a large number of people that feel that to some extent that they are aware. But does that translate into action? Well, what we're seeing is that 76% across the board agree to some extent, or to a strong extent, that they are aware of the organization's sustainability strategy and vision, with 28% strongly agreeing with that statement across the board. But when we asked, would you like to do more to contribute towards your organization's sustainability goals, even more people agreed. 79% of people agreed with that statement, and 31% strongly agreed with that statement. So we're actually seeing more people that want to do more, but are already aware of the organization's sustainability strategy and vision, but they still feel like that they can do more. And even among those employees that feel that they are aware, there still is 12% that don't want to do more, but there's 64% of people both are aware and agree that they want to do more. So they are already aware, but they feel like they're not contributing enough. So why is that, and how do we encourage people to contribute more and contribute more to their organization's sustainability goals? Well, we also asked about those reasons too. So we asked, would rewards and recognition motivate you to take part in your organization's sustainability initiatives? 80% agreed that it would. And then 81% has also agreed that seeing colleagues participate would encourage them to take part in those sustainability initiatives. But the key figure, I think, and this is one of the highest rates of agreement that we saw in the entire study overall, is that 86% of respondents agreed that having resources to learn how to integrate sustainability into their role would motivate them to contribute more to their organization's sustainability initiatives. So I think coming back to the awareness factor, we saw 50% somewhat agreed and around 25% strongly agreed that they were aware of the initiatives. I think that strongly agreed percentage are people who understand and who understand the organization's sustainability initiatives and also understand very well how they can contribute. Where the 50% that somewhat agreed are people who have a general knowledge of the initiatives, but they may think of it in terms of we're electrifying the fleet, or we're changing suppliers to have a more sustainable supplier. They may be someone like myself, a marketer, who might feel that they are far removed from the sustainability initiatives, and feel like they can't make that change in their day-to-day activities that can contribute to the sustainability initiatives. And so they'll need that encouragement, they'll need the education, and they'll need a culture shift. And that brings us back to the beginning again. We have the three pillars that will bridge the gap between employee awareness of their organization's sustainability strategy and vision, and employee action towards the sustainability goals. Those three pillars being education, so understanding how their role contributes and how their daily actions contribute to the organization's sustainability initiatives. Engagement, so that's rewards and recognition to motivate them to actually take part in those initiatives. And a culture shift, so that's seeing their colleagues participate and having that culture of sustainability from all levels in the organization. So that's really the end of my part. We've actually done we've asked a lot more questions than what I've presented today. When I first was writing it, I really got deep into the weeds, but we had to whittle it down into something that's a lot more digestible so that we could really get the key points across. So there are a lot of more findings from this. We are going to start to disseminate that information in sort of bite-sized digestible parts over the course of the next year. But if you do have any specific questions, we asked about public sector versus private sector. We asked about different industries. We obviously asked about organization sizes and demographic factors as well. So there are a lot of considerations when it comes to building your strategy. And if you do have questions about that, please do reach out. I'm also going to share a link to where you can sign up for our newsletter. And if you want to sign up to that, we also do monthly insights on sustainability engagement. And we can also, and by signing up, you'll also immediately get a copy of the white paper. If you're already subscribed, we can send that through to you. Please feel free to email and ask for it. But that's the end of my section. If you've got any questions for now, post them in the Q&A section and we'll get to them at the end.
Cool, thanks, Sam. And Tam, I'm going to come back to that you've mentioned as well, because it's really interesting. But yeah, for the people that have already seen this report, I hope you'll agree it's a really great bit of work from Sam. If anyone would like to see it, Sam will, as he said, will share the report with you. And just looking at the people and where they are of the company's sustainability strategy, it's all about moving that needle, pushing that bit more from the bottom up, educating and empowering those people who are at the beginning of their journey in ways that they understand, all the way up to the super knowledgeable and already engaged, where you can really harness their passion and support them in spreading the word and leading from the front. And Tam, I think that's a really good question. I think it's a natural human instinct to kind of follow what other people are doing because it gives you confidence to make that first leap. If I see, if no one's done it yet, I'm hesitant. But if I see people getting involved, it's going to really give me the confidence and the push to make that move too and join. And that's how you make a community. Yeah, that's how you make a good, strong community of people all doing their part and also sharing best practice and learning from each other. Cool. So we're going to welcome Josh to the stage, and he's going to give a kind of a nice summary from COP24.
Great. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Sam, for that as well. And thanks, everyone, for joining today and dialing in. Just on the next slide, please, Sam. So, yeah, just wanted to cover COP29 today. We wanted to do this webinar straight after the end of the COP. It's always a bit of a gamble because sometimes you don't know how long these things are going to overrun, but it did close over the weekend. And I suppose for those of you who don't know what a COP is, and I know I'm talking to a room full of sustainability professionals who should be aware, but it's a conference of the party, obviously an international conference all about climate change. But what I want to do today is talk briefly about COP29, talk about what the outputs were, think about how we can use COP, or whether we can use COP as a mechanism for communicating sustainability and climate change, and then finally thinking about what the outputs of COP mean to us as sustainability professionals, and what they might mean to your organisation. So just to put the COP into a bit of context, we're nearly 5 years into the implementation phase of the Paris Agreement. The most recent global stocktake revealed stark realities. Whilst progress has been made towards reducing emissions, the progress that has been made has been insufficient really to cap global warming at 1.5 degrees, which we all know is so crucial. So this COP comes at a time when that global gap between ambition and action, which Sam's talked about today, threatens not only the environment, but also the stability of economies and communities worldwide. So the stakes really couldn't be higher. The science tells us we're approaching irreversible tipping points, and the geopolitics reminds us that the challenges of cooperation are huge in this growingly fragmented world. So this COP was really important. It's where action really had to meet ambition. So 65,000 attendees descended on Baku in Azerbaijan for 2 weeks of negotiation, and the sessions closed around 35 hours late, which, as I say, is not too bad for a COP. So what were the results? And on the next slide, please. So this COP was always going to be hailed as the finance COP. It was all about climate finance, and that's a real key sticking point for the COP in terms of how much financial commitment developed countries should be making. The headline figure for climate finance was a tripling of the funding agreed to be made available by developed nations, a tripling of that budget to £300 billion per year. This is now being called the Baku finance goal. However, is 300 billion enough? Is estimated that the actual true cost, the amount of funding actually required, is something like 1.3 trillion pounds, and that's what countries from least developed nations and poorer countries were pushing for, and that was a big sticking point. But I'll talk more about that in a second. There was agreement on carbon markets, which is very positive. That's something which previous COPs haven't been able to achieve. These agreements will help countries deliver the climate plans more quickly, more cheaply, and make faster progress in halving global emissions this decade, as required by the science. From a global stocktake perspective, this is essentially how we measure collective progress towards long-term climate goals. It wasn't good news on this front. Many wanted to reiterate, to track, and to embed the wording agreed at the previous COP around transitioning away from fossil fuels and to submit climate pledges aligned with the 1.5 degree limit. No agreement was made. Ultimately, it was blocked at the last moment amid complaints from developed and from vulnerable nations that the draft text was watered down. And it was watered down to the extent that it was a backtrack from commitments taken last year. So decisions on that fossil fuels statement, on global stocktake, has now been pushed forward to the COP30, which will be in Brazil. And then the controversies, of which there were a number. So the elephant in the room perhaps is Azerbaijan as the host, a big petro state. 2/3 of the government revenue is derived from fossil fuels. Just before the COP, the president of Azerbaijan described oil and gas as a gift from God. So not really setting the stage for massive decisions and agreements about reducing fossil fuels and about reducing climate emissions. Towards the end of the COP, 2 big blocks of nations staged a walkout in protest over the negotiations and about the amount being agreed. The Alliance of Small Island States and the LDC, the least developed countries bloc, walked out in protest. They did rejoin. They did ultimately agree on a form of wording, but it's the first time that walkout has ever happened, as I understand. And then obviously the whole COP was held under the spectre of the US election and the results from that. And you have to ask the question whether the idea that it's likely that the US will withdraw from the Paris Agreement. It's likely that they will withdraw from their climate commitments. Did that then push the LDCs, those least economically developed countries, and the Alliance of Small Island States to agree to this text on the basis that they knew that in future years it might be even more difficult to come to a deal? But it also perhaps led the US election might have led for some positives around the UK, around the EU, and around China stepping up to take more of a global leadership position in climate negotiations, and that might be a trend which we see continuing. And then finally, from a controversy perspective, it was fairly widely positioned that the negotiation strategy led by Azerbaijan was fairly poorly run process. It put into question the effectiveness of COP. It put into question how COPs are run and how agreements are formed, and criticism led primarily by Nigeria and India around how they felt they were left out of negotiations. Next slide, please. So it can make, sometimes you look at COP and Claire, as I see you note in the comments in the chat as well, it can be very disheartening listening to the COP outputs, listening to the intricacies of geopolitics and listening to not a lot of action sometimes being taken. But I thought this quote from Christiana, the former UN climate chief, was quite powerful. It's that COP process is an essential and irreplaceable vehicle for supporting multilateral, multi-sectoral, and a systemic change that we urgently need. COP isn't perfect, but is there an alternative? It gets 200 countries around the table. It has to be the mechanism for those big changes which we need to see the world undertake. Next slide, please. So thinking about the outputs from COP, I just wanted to explore a little bit about whether COP and whether COP29 particularly cut through the noise we all face in our everyday lives, whether it becomes useful to us all as professional sustainability professionals to help communicate the issues that we work on. So I've got a quick poll for us. So the first poll, Sam, if you can, is about, have you published any communications in your organisation about COP29? Have you put out a newsletter? Have you written a news article? Have you done a blog? Have you done anything about communicating the COP29 to your people? We'll just wait a couple of seconds for everyone's responses to trickle in. Thank you. So overwhelmingly no, which 75% no at the moment, which is very interesting. I'll come back to that in a second. And then my second question is, for you personally, have you read about COP29 in the press? Have you seen a news bulletin? Have you read an article online, in print? And that's our second poll. Good. Okay. So thanks everyone for submitting. So, I think from our experience as sustainability engagement experts, engaging people around a COP can be very tricky. We know COPs are technical. We know there's lots of jargon. The lack of direct impact on people's lives means it isn't always something which cuts through the noise. And it's interesting to see that a lot of the people here, I think 70%, 80% there, didn't do any communication around COP29. But the only thing I'd say about that is anything which gets climate change and sustainability on the news is positive. It raises people's awareness and it raises people's understanding. I will say a caveat would be there are some exceptions to this around engaging people around COPs. And I think there's occasions where we might understand that a COP is going to make a big decision, a bit like Paris nearly 10 years ago, a bit like when UK hosted COP in Glasgow. Those sort of events generate a lot more noise, a lot more cut through, and would be a target for me when communicating with people around attaching climate messaging to those sort of events. But for a regular COP, it can be very tricky. And I think we see that evidenced in the poll as well. Okay, so for the last section on what to expect for my organisation, well, I think there's still these into four main areas. So regulatory changes. The UK has committed to more ambitious NDC, that's nationally determined contributions, the amount of carbon that we're going to cut. It's likely, and look a bit like looking into a crystal ball, but it's highly likely that we can then expect regulations aimed at reducing carbon emissions because of that commitment. Staying ahead of those changes will be crucial for compliance and competitiveness. A good example of that is the Climate and Nature Bill currently back in Parliament, currently being discussed in Parliament. That's something which will strengthen, from a regulation and legislation perspective, the changes that we'll have to make. Investment in sustainability is going to have to go up. There's going to be increased government pressure on businesses to invest in more sustainable practices and technologies. This might include adopting renewable energies, improving energy efficiency, and certainly reducing waste. And then from a reporting perspective, I think, Laura, you mentioned CSRD. So that landscape is going to keep evolving. ESG criteria is only going to be influenced by COP29 outcomes. It's highly likely that organisations will need to provide in the future more detailed and transparent disclosures about sustainability performance. And then finally on this, the corporate climate commitments. The private sector is expected to play a key role in delivering some of those COP29 outcomes. And that $300 billion annual contribution from developed countries is also, has been agreed, alongside a 1.3 trillion voluntary number, which we're all aiming for, and governments will be looking at the private sector to help finance a lot of that. So pressure will be on for organisations to increase their climate commitments and investments, advocating for stronger policies and regulatory environments to support a just transition for every nation. So just to conclude, really, COP29, it's been a step forward for global climate action. Whether it's a big step or a little step, I'll leave you to decide. For us, sustainability professionals at organisations, it presents both challenges and opportunities. What we can do is by staying informed, being proactive. I think that way companies can not only comply with new regulations, but also lead the way in sustainability, driving positive change and securing long-term success. So thanks very much for listening. Any questions, please do put them in the Q&A there, and happy to get to them. Back over to you, Laura. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Josh. Really great summary. It can be very overwhelming, so it is good to kind of break it down as you did in a nice kind of easy to manage way. And of course, it's being recorded, so if you do want to re-listen to that and use anything that we've talked about to inform your colleagues and your organisation, then obviously you're more than welcome to use our summary. Now, before we go on to questions, I'm just going to have a little bit of time to showcase some of our programmes. So you can understand what they look like and some of the capabilities of them in helping with sustainability engagement. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Sam and Josh, can you see that?
Yep, can see it well, thank you.
Great, okay. So I'm first of all going to show you Manchester University Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. They've been with us since 2018. They've gone through a rebrand recently to refresh their programme. But Manchester had ambitious sustainability targets and had been used to implementing, behaviour change initiatives. But what they hadn't done is engage their staff in sustainability over and above generating just some general employee interest with no action. They had no way to track engagement over time, and they really lacked the ability to create communications that engage their diverse workforce. They tailored this programme to their sustainable development management plan, including things such as sustainable commuting, stairs over lift, anything that related to that plan. And they include lots of learning opportunities for their staff to educate themselves on what sustainability means. They provided data from it, giving the trust new insights previously unattainable, and had an engagement specialist from Jump creating their bespoke comms, because they're super busy, as is everyone. So far, they've got 2,000 staff registered, 280,000 actions completed, and over 350 kgs of CO2e avoided. So looking at their programme, always at the forefront is their initial kind of actions they've taken, the green points that are associated to those actions, the rate how regularly they're doing it, and the estimates of CO2e that avoided, this individuals avoided. This is kind of a dummy programme, but it gives you an idea of what it looks like. So you want to make sure that's front and centre, always in their minds, that what they're doing is having an impact. It's their space here to get across the messages on things that are really important to them. So climate change, or if they wanted to do a summary on COP, this is their place. They can do that without it being diluted in an email or in kind of a clunky intranet or SharePoint. So this makes it engaging, so they can get these important messages across to their people in ways that they can understand and get involved in and enjoy learning about it in better ways. So here they've got their climate emergency strategy, making sure everyone knows what it is, why it's important, and what they can do to get involved. Okay, moving on. So all these themes at the core of the programme here relate to their green plans. So these are everything that's really important within their green plans around their sustainability development management plan. I'm sure lots of them will seem familiar to you. So travel, energy and water, health and well-being, and many more. But, people learn and are engaged in lots of different ways. And that's why it's important you're able to provide lots of different ways to involve them and educate your people to get across those messages. And that's why the activities range from educational to submission to pledge activities. Education pieces could be anything that you want to involve in there that's going to boost their knowledge. It could be a link off to a website that's important to you. It could be something they read. It could be a quiz. It could be a podcast. Anything that's going to give them the knowledge about what sustainability is on certain topics. We also have submission activities, which is all about creating that community that I talked about earlier. It's about sharing best practice and what's important for these individuals and what they're doing on a daily basis. And we also have pledge activities. So these I'm in buttons here, and they're the ones that are arguably the most important, because they're the ones that are going to get that regular behaviour change. People, doing something over a matter of weeks and it becoming part of their kind of their life and their behaviours to be more sustainable. And it works. I don't go anywhere without turning off all my plugs anymore. But yeah, it's something that I did on here every week. I get a push notification, an email just to record what I'm doing. And yeah, it helps change those behaviours and get people being more sustainable. And going back to Tam's point here, which I was going to touch on. So in order to create that community of kind of eco-conscious people, it helps to create visibility around what individuals are doing. And the activity feed does just that. It shows off what people are doing, how many points they're earning, and particularly visibility around kind of senior leadership, walking the talk. And this goes back to Sam's section, where we found that 81% of people surveyed said they were more likely to do something if they saw a colleague participating. Very social media-esque feed. And all these green points that I'm talking about, they say they are now on a leaderboard here. You can check how they're doing individually or as teams, create that, interdepartmental competition. Everyone likes the NHS team, really keen on that competition side of things. So the points they accrue, they lead to people being placed on this leaderboard. So top point earners can be rewarded with shopping vouchers. And again, as Sam said, 80% of people said rewards and recognition are a key motivation for them. So let's harness that and reward them for being more sustainable. And they have lots of different places they can spend their vouchers, including eco stores and also team awards for donating to this particular one's hospital charities that they support, which is really lovely. Another really important thing is that we make it relatable for our clients. No one really knows, what a KGFC really looks like. So we break it down in terms that people can grasp. And this helps negate that mentality of, oh, okay, won't make a difference, so why bother? A good example here of sustainable commute. This is something that our people have opted into. And this is how many trips, for instance, they've been able to save from Manchester to London from doing these sustainable actions. financially how much they've saved, and lots of different ways they can understand the impact of what they're doing, and hopefully carry on because they know they're making a difference. Now, back a couple of years ago, we were awarded some funding from SBI Healthcare, which was all about technologies being brought to the NHS. And we worked with 3 NHS clients to get their feedback on what they thought would be really important to engage their people. Manchester actually one of the participating hospitals, and one thing that we built with them was our carbon calculator. And we believe it's the first of its kind, actually, because it's got a work and home split. So people can work out what their carbon footprint is at home and what it is at work. And we offer ways for them to bring that down over these different kind of themes. It's also a way to capture data. So if your people complete this when they first join, and a year's time they do it again, we can track how they're doing with their carbon footprint and if they've brought it down, if it's gone up, and what we can do to further make that more effective. And data. Everyone wants more data, and it's really difficult to prove impact. But we really try and help you here for that. We provide data not just on registrations and what activities people are doing, how regularly they're getting involved with. We're actually able to link our activities to different reporting metrics, which people are finding really important, that they're using it because they can see it and they help it to plan for future investment from their organisations. And we can even personalise it, not just relate it to the SDGs and Sustainable Development Goals. We can actually customise data. So if you had a target to reduce your residual waste by 10%, for instance, that you could actually set that as a key metric, and we could track against it and see how well your people are engaging in that. And to give you an idea of the customisation and what other clients' programs look like, I wanted to just quickly show you a couple of others before I move on. This is University of Edinburgh. They actually launched this year with a pilot of 1,000 people and have a view to expand after year 1. And their programme is called Take Action for Sustainability, and it's aimed at driving action across key areas for them, including waste, energy, travel, shopping, nature, and skills building. They have run a targeted campaigns within their programme and within the teams, with the last one being on a plant-based food, which they were really engaged with and really enjoyed. Now we have almost 400 people registered and recorded 5,000 actions already. And to give you just a flavour of other themes, so they've got one for biodiversity and well-being, and everything that's important to them. All of them have more info on, so they can really understand that specific action and why it's important and what they can get rewarded for doing it. There's also a food-wise challenge, which they found really interesting. And to support that, we related it to lots of different things so they could really understand what they were doing. Talks about how many plant-based days they had and bathtubs of water and journeys from Edinburgh to Glasgow. And they could really see the effect they were having. And what's really important as well, they've got kind of this skill building and networking. And I think learning and developing in climate change, so many people are engaging in climate literacy training. And this is a great hub to cross-promote what you're doing in that kind of learning section. They can earn points for taking part in courses, as you can see, and we can have links off to your training sites, which is really, really effective. Not only that, but we do have our own education hub now, which is a brand new feature. Every month we have new topics. We normally have something you can watch, something you could read, a quiz, and a submission post. And it's a great way to introduce people to what sustainability is over lots of different topics. And last but not least, I wanted to show you kind of a flavour of a corporate global programme. So Barclays, they started as a pilot in 2019 in the UK. They grew to a global programme, and the focus was all about creating a culture of sustainability and using educational content to boost awareness across their workforce. It has a really good mix of actions, this programme, something that people can be doing at work and at home. There's 15,000 people registered. There's 60% year-on-year growth this year, and they've recorded over 750,000 actions across the globe. An estimated 1.2 million kg of CO2 avoided. And, Barclays, they talk very publicly across their business about their program. They mention it every year in the annual report, and it's really well engaged with and a really good performing program. And a recent hot off the press engagement survey results, literally in yesterday, has provided with some amazing data regarding this program. 94% agree that they understand more about the impact of their actions and the environment. 88% agreed they were more aware of which items they can recycle and take more care with this. And 93% are more conscious about their energy usage and take actions to reduce that. So some really good high percentages there, showing that the people that are using this program, whether they're new to it or, green champions, they are more mindful and they do take it into account in their everyday lives. And all those people working together will have a really big collective impact. Barclays is a good example of customization. We have lots of activities, 350 actually in our library we can use. But they had this very specific one about using revolving doors in all seasons to save energy. So you can just make up an activity that's important to you and you can put it on the program, which is great. Being a global program, they have a multi-view functionalities to make sure that people in different areas of the world see relevant activities and prizes, etc. for them. So we have the multi-view option, but still being able to see those agnostic themes that you want as an organisation to get across to every part of your business. We provide different languages. USW, Welsh University of South Wales, they've got a section in Welsh and in English. And we also have badges functionality with Barclays. So this is a non-financial reward way to reward your people. They have kind of an interactive trophy cabinet here, celebrating milestones that people get to. So some really great stuff here, as well as role personalization, which is actually allowing different roles within the business, seeing activities that relate to them. So from someone in admin to someone in sales, from someone in the cleaning team. So lots of different things to engage people as best possible. So that's all from me. We've got a short amount of time for some questions. So please do feel free to pop them in the chat box and we'll answer them if we can. So love the leadership point, so important. Is there any way you can link this to a specific department sustainability objectives and the actions employees are taking towards them? Yes, so I did touch on the kind of role personalization. So we have got the ability to have specific activities for different departments or different individual roles, and we can track that using our data functionality as well. Tam, if you'd like to book a call with me, I'll put my meeting link in here. Pop in half an hour and we can meet and chat about it. Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks, Daniel. Any more questions? We have a couple of minutes. Cool. Thanks, Lauren. Clive, thanks so much. Oh, fantastic, Clive. Thank you. Yeah, and sharing best practice, fab. Thank you for sharing that, Clive. We try, Tam. On that, if we're open to feedback, always regarding things such as the content of our webinars. We try to mix it up. Also on the delivery, this is the first year I've been doing webinars. It's quite out of my comfort zone, so any feedback, I've got a thick skin, don't worry. Just do let me know anything about our webinars that we could improve on. We're always open to that. And if you have made it this far and you still haven't opened a conversation with us, then please reach out to me or submit contact form, fire away any questions you have. But we will follow up today's session with a short survey and would really appreciate your honest feedback. Really lovely to see you all, and I hope you have a fantastic December. Yes, Angela, we do have different options for all different types of organisation, size of organisation. I'm happy to chat if you want to book in using that link, and I can explain how we help. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day.